College football fans, if you checked out the Week 5 schedule, it is crazy good, and this may be the best of them all. Not expected to be this when the season started. Arkansas, Georgia in Athens. We got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line from Dawn of the Dog. Of course, you're the voice of college football. We ask that you would like the video, share the videos out on social media, and subscribe. Hey, Savannah, what's going on today?
Playing a lot of golf, actually. I know it's college football season, but we've been out at the golf course all day and enjoying creating content and enjoying the nice views. And we have so many beautiful golf courses down here. So I've kind of gotten spoiled in that element, even though I'm so far away from Athens. But it's an enjoyable experience.
Georgia in late September at a golf course. I can't imagine that that's the worst day in the world.
No, not at all. It's almost like a crisp, like in the mid 70s, like low 80s right now. So it's absolutely perfect weather.
People who live in the north, listen to that. Crisp in the 70s or low 80s.
Oh, well, it got kind of like chilly. It even got in the 50s probably Saturday, I think it was, Friday or Saturday. And I thought it was coming in early, but then it got back up to the 80s today. And I was mistaken that we would have an early enough fall, but we'll take it. It's better than 90 degrees and blazing hot.
Yes, absolutely. It is becoming more like football weather.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I got to tell you, Savannah, looking at this Georgia team, obviously we had no question that they were going to beat Vandy. They were a 35-point favorite, but they almost doubled that. And 62-0. Nobody else is beating Vandy quite that bad. So it was just a day to get a ton of guys reps, see some young guys. I think 9 different players carried the ball out of the backfield. Obviously, Stetson Bennett was able to get into the game. I don't know if Carson Beck did as well, but get their reps against Vandy. So it was one of those kind of days.
Yeah, to be honest, it was 2 years of pent-up aggression built up against Vanderbilt after they skipped out not once but twice last year because of COVID situations. And so I think the guys on the Georgia team had a little bit of revenge that they wanted to give, and they did. And in my opinion, we see these revenge games, or we see these games that Georgia's supposed to just blow out opponents, and usually it's like 42-0. But it takes all 4 quarters to get to that 42-0 score. But Georgia put on the pressure, scored 35 in the first quarter, and probably could have scored 56 in the first quarter if they kept the pedal down. But instead, Kirby Smart did it in I wouldn't say classy way, but in a respectful way in terms of putting in the backups and letting them get reps and stuff. But overall, Georgia never let off that throttle. They continued to push it down the entire game, and that's something that I really was impressed to see, because usually Kirby lets off, and that's usually when teams score on us late in the ball game. And another game that this defense didn't allow an offensive touchdown. So it's really impressive, and I'm excited. It's just each week I'm just like, all right, we're going to see some kind of mistakes. Nope, not yet. So hopefully we'll continue this and keep it up. So
the big news has to be the return of Tyke Smith and Darnell Washington at defense back, and of course with Washington at tight end. So they're coming up just in time to face one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, having Tyke Smith in the secondary is just going to give another element of experience that group needs. If I had to say that the defense had any kind of weakness, it would have been the secondary. But after the way that they performed against Vandy with 5 or 6 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and then holding Vanderbilt to like 28 yards through the air, I was really proud of how they stepped up, regardless of who was in that game. But having a guy like Tyke Smith, who is a veteran who knows how to run a secondary, is just going to do nothing but help their confidence out. And then having another weapon like Darnell Washington, I think it's 6'7", 260 or something like that. He's just a big target. He's going to draw some eyes, and even though he hasn't been playing, I guarantee you Sam Pittman's going to have him circled on the list of people to like watch out for, which in my opinion, seeing Brock Bowers, I would have him circled as well. But with the 2 of them, it's going to be hard to pick who you're going to really cover, because they're both really, really impressive. I'm excited to see them in a 2 tight end set. So,
like I said off the top, we did not expect this to be one of the big games of the year in the SEC. Arkansas had 2 games in which they were a pretty substantial underdog out of their 4 games. And of course, game 1 was Texas at home. They were a touchdown underdog, and they just took it to Texas and really beat them up front, both in the running game and then defensively in containing Bijan Robinson and Texas. That was a 33-7 game in the third quarter that they kind of coasted home for a 3-score win. And then for those people that maybe had questioned that and said, well, that's Texas and they're not back like they always say they are, and that's not an SEC opponent. Well, boom, Texas A&M shows up, and they've got top 5 to 10 talent in the country, and they were supposed to be the more physical team, more talented team. And I tell you, I watched that entire game too, and from the opening snap, Arkansas took it to them in the run game again. And really, it got somewhat of a game in the fourth quarter, but really Arkansas had it under control from the opening drive, and they are impressive. And like we talked about, Savannah, before we started to record, it's amazing when you take an Arkansas team that for 2 consecutive years did not win a game in the SEC, was losing to teams like Colorado State, Western Kentucky, North Texas, and a different coach takes over. He can only recruit and play so many freshmen, so he's mostly playing with Chad Morris's players. They were so much better last year. Their record didn't really reflect it, but they were miles better last year, and now it looks like this year they're even tons better than that.
Yeah, to me, it's all about the culture in Arkansas, and if anybody screams Arkansas culture, it's Sam Pittman. I think he needs a lifetime coaching contract over there because there's no one that's going to handle that team the way he does. He knows how to win with them. And I think they've just kind of bought into that energy and want to win for him because he loves the university so much. I just don't think Chad Morris ever really got the camaraderie that Sam Pittman has gotten in the first year and a half now from them. And so it's so fun to see because as Georgia fans, we all love Sam Pittman just because he was such a good asset to have for Kirby Smart. And now it's hard to really want to be rooting against Arkansas because we love Sam Pittman so much, and it's so good to see them playing well again because it's been so long. But at the end of the day, I really believe Texas was overrated, and Sam Pittman had that game circled on there because he knew how much it meant to the program, and getting that win gave them so much confidence moving forward. And I just think that, Texas A&M expected a team like we've seen in the past with Arkansas. Not really, we've seen them, win early or something like that. But I don't think they ever expected them to kind of like punch them in the mouth the way that they did and run the ball the way that they did. So Georgia's going to have to really, stack the front seven and find a way to stop that run because that's going to be what they're going to try to rely on. But KJ Jefferson's also, a really talented passer as well. And I really liked just how he's been developed in the last year and used. So I'm excited to see Arkansas against a team like Georgia because I think this is going to be their biggest test yet. But I also think it's going to be Georgia's second biggest test after Clemson. But then again, Clemson just got beat by NC State. And so I think this will be a better test for, down the next kind of stretch of tough games that they have.
Yeah, I think you're onto something in regards to the culture component of it, because I think what Sam Pittman is doing basically in emphasizing offensive line, defensive line play and taking it to the other team, punching them in the mouth is similar to Brett Bielema's style at Arkansas. But he's basically knows, like you say, loves the school, knows the state, and he's ingrained in the culture where Bielema was coming in from Big Ten country, but trying to accomplish the same thing in regards to building that same style of play on both sides of the ball, but much more successful to this point. And it's just amazing because usually when a coach comes into a program like this and suddenly starts winning just out of nowhere, either he's a Nick Saban, Urban Meyer type that just goes anywhere they want and starts winning, like they've got this proven track record, or it's some young guy that is an up-and-comer that pulls off like a Matt Campbell at Iowa State. Well, this is a guy that's I'm just shocked that this guy, nobody's really given this guy a chance to become a head coach, and he's more than 60 years old.
I don't think he would have taken any other head coaching job except for Arkansas. When he coached there before, he loved Arkansas. He was able to really put I believe at the time Arkansas had the biggest offensive line in the country when he was there beforehand, and he loved the culture and he loved what they were doing just as an assistant coach. And so when he left and decided to come to Georgia and other schools like that, he got a whole other taste of it. And I think he got a really good lesson from Kirby Smart on how to kind of handle himself in the first couple of years of being a new head coach and being under this scrutiny and pressure of having to make all of the decisions outside of just what you do in the offensive line room. And so I think he's kind of taken all the knowledge he's learned from the head coaches he's been under the last 30 years, 40 years of coaching, maybe not 40 years, 30 years of coaching or so, and has just kind of putting it away and keeping those kind of tidbits and knowledge, and it's helped him. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to not like Sam Pittman. So I think all these kids just want to do so well for him because he has that infectious personality and he wants to win and he wants to do whatever is best for Arkansas. I'm not saying Brett Bielema or Chad Morris didn't want to as well, but he gets it. Like he understands it. And I think that's so crucial in college football. Well, at least it used to be. It's not as much. Coaches can go just about anywhere now and win, give or take the talent that is there. But think about Nick Saban coming in and then adapting to the Alabama culture and changing it to what it is now, and then Kirby Smart coming into Georgia and implementing that culture there. Culture is so important in the SEC. Sam Pittman gets it, and it's paying off so far.
I was searching for the point spread on this one, but my question was going to be whether you think Arkansas' start and beating up Texas and Texas A&M the way they have has gotten Georgia's attention, because of course this wasn't a game that people were looking at to start the season. They were looking at, Arkansas, it's a nice story. They're much better, and hopefully they can get to a bowl game this year. And Georgia's playing for a national championship. And so it's the Clemson game, it's the Florida game, and it's the Auburn game just because that's a big rivalry. But that's pretty much the games that are circled for Georgia. Nobody was talking about this one. And then suddenly it's arrived, and it's, wow, these are two top 5 to 10 teams in the country.
Yeah, Kirby Smart's today in his press conference that this is not the same Arkansas team that Georgia saw last year when they played them in Fayetteville, and they're not going to handle them the same way that they did last year. Even down to N'Kobe Dean and Ladd McConkey. All the players understand that this is a new Arkansas team. They need to pay attention to them, regardless of what's happened in the past, regardless of how they beat them last year. It's Kirby Smart has definitely been paying attention after the Texas game. Who wouldn't be paying attention to Arkansas because they took them to the woodshed and handled them with a vengeance. And so I think that's when Kirby Smart and them started paying attention to them. But at the same time, then you started seeing them score more points, and you started seeing them being able to run the ball. I mean, 16 of 18 in the red zone is at 89%. Georgia's not even that good. They're at 78% of 15 of 19. And so Sam Pittman is getting his team to do something, but we also need to talk about their ability to have Barry Odom come from Missouri. Well, he got fired, and coach his defense, because that defense is only giving up, I believe, 14.5 points a game. And that's huge. I mean, Arkansas has never been a big defensive mind before. And so I think that while we're all looking at the offense, Georgia's also looking at their defense to see how our offense can kind of either run the ball or pass the ball. They've been struggling on the ground against Vandy and South Carolina to kind of establish a run, even though we got over 200 yards against the Commodores last week. That's something that Georgia's going to have to do to beat Arkansas. But I'm excited. I love when teams that we don't expect to be competitive are competitive, like in Arkansas. And so all it does is help Georgia's schedule in the long run, because even if they do get beat, they're still going to go on and continue to win because they have a lot of confidence that Sam Pittman is putting into them.
Well, Savannah, in that sense, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds as a Georgia fan this year, because there are a lot of problems in college football that weren't expected with places like Oklahoma and Ohio State and Clemson, but Georgia's not yet had their issues. So it's
not going to be.
We're only 4 weeks into this, and it's been the most unpredictable college football season in a long, long time. But Georgia's unscathed at this point. Now, I just looked at the point spread, and maybe Vegas. Somebody needs to let Vegas know that Arkansas is for real. I expected Georgia's at home. They are, there's no question. Look at the recruiting, a much more talented team. I thought they might be maybe an 8 or 9 point favorite.
Mhm.
It's 18.5.
Holy
They're an
cow.
18.5 point favorite.
Someone call Vegas and be like, look, no. Georgia has the only close game it's been is against Clemson so far this season, and so I understand why it is the way that is. But at the same time, the way Arkansas has played Texas, and then now Texas A&M, I just don't see it. I think it's going to be probably a 10-point game, or if not even just a 7-point game, give or take. It'll all depend on if Georgia can establish that dominant defense and really get them off the field on third down. Arkansas is at 35%, 18 of 51 on third down right now. And so if Georgia can hold them to fewer than 35% on third down in this game, I think that is going to be the stat that everybody talks about after this game is what each team does on third down, 100%, because Georgia's at 53% and Arkansas is at 35%. But it's just going to be who can get the other off the field to be able to get the offense back there and really wear down the other defense.
Got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line from Dawn of the Dog. You see the site name right there. Just track her work right there covering Georgia football. You'd mentioned to me before we started to record about just the secondary improvement and, of course, getting Tyke Smith back. Was there anything else you wanted to say concerning the secondary?
Honestly, I'm just glad that Tyke Smith is back. But I will say I never expected to have 7 interceptions in the first 4 games for the Dogs, much less what I believe 2 pick sixes. And so that kind of explosiveness on the back end of the defense counteracts when the front 7 is either getting held or having a hard time getting to the quarterback. And so they're stepping up and really making themselves known with a bunch of kids that outside of Lewis Seen don't really have any, talks or anything like that. They're just kind of kids that have been waiting their turn to get this opportunity to start. So adding Tyke Smith in there, and then you have Keely Ringo who's getting that confidence. It's just going to be a unit that not a lot of people expected to be this good. They're giving up, I think right now, 115 yards through the air per game. And that's really impressive because that's usually where Georgia is the weakest. Like that is where teams can take advantage of the Dogs. But Keely Ringo is gaining more and more confidence. If Kirby Smart can figure out how to reel in his aggressiveness to make plays and stuff, I think he's going to be an All-American. I also think Lewis Seen could be an All-American too if he continues to play the way he is. He leads the team in tackles right now at 19, tied with Channing Tindall. So I expected them to kind of have some growing pains, but there's only been a handful of games that they've kind of seen some blow ups with Amir Speed at the South Carolina game where they gave up the 1 offensive touchdown pass. And so I'm just really proud of them because each game that they continue to shine like this, they're gaining confidence. But I'm also excited the fact that they have 14 pass breakups on the season. That means that they're being aggressive enough without getting those penalties. And it's exciting to see because we've been waiting for Georgia to have a secondary that does this. Kirby Smart's, expertise is the secondary. That's what he was so good at coaching with Alabama. So it's good to see some guys finally step up and make some plays for him.
Arkansas at Georgia. They're both 4-0 and huge game in the SEC coming up noon Eastern time on Saturday. Savannah, we appreciate you stopping by as always.
Thanks, Mark. Always happy to be here.